All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Dean. I am from InterSystems. My team at InterSystems runs developer events just like this. We do our InterSystems Developer Community, which you should definitely check out. I think there's a link in here later on for that. And my team also runs the InterSystems Startup Program, and I will mention that briefly. I'm just going to do a brief intro here, and then I'll hand it over to our excellent speakers. There are two talks tonight. They are about agentic AI and retrieval systems. Jayesh is actually going to be the first speaker tonight, and then the super team will follow him, and they'll certainly describe their topics. How many of you have never been to an InterSystems meetup before? Please. All right, a huge number. All right, so are there people who have been to an InterSystems meetup before? Okay, all right, excellent. So I just wanted to level set everyone that InterSystems does meetups on the overall theme of innovating on health data. We do them every month here in Boston or at the Venture Cafe in Cambridge. This is our first time at the Amazon AWS office, and I'd love to shout out Justin Davies and the Amazon AWS team. If we give them a brief round of applause for their hosting this event for us. AWS is a great partner of InterSystems. We do all kind of things with them, and we also do a startup boot camp, AWS and InterSystems. Last year we did it in November. We're still trying to find the timing, but keep your eyes open for that. I know that some of you have never heard of InterSystems before because I was chatting with some of you before the start of this. So very, very briefly, InterSystems is a global technology company. We are headquartered right here in Boston at 1 Congress Street. We are 47 years old, and that means we've been around as long as companies like Microsoft, and we've been around longer than companies like Google, OpenAI, Amazon, and many others. The reason that you may never have heard of InterSystems is because the company is privately held. So there's no news about stock price or quarterly earnings or shareholder meetings or anything because the company is privately held, but our technology is actually used around the world. The major industries that we operate in are healthcare, financial services, supply chain logistics, and now AI. And as just one example, in healthcare, we have customers in over 80 countries. We are used by all the stakeholders of healthcare, including software development entities in healthcare like Epic and Athena Health. Those systems are built on top of InterSystems platform. We also work directly with healthcare providers like Mass General Brigham's and hundreds of others, and pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies, life science, medical device companies, and even government systems like the Veterans Administration, National Health Service in the UK, and like that all around the world. Our data platform is the most popular health data platform, period. We have the startup program. We've been up and running for 3 years. It's fairly comprehensive. We have our own startup incubator that runs every year. We have a corporate venture fund. We do boot camps with AWS and others. And we have growth toolkits that help startups go to market. You can find more information about it at this URL right here, startup.intersystems.com, and you can certainly chat with me during this meetup as well. This is our next meetup. It will also be here at the AWS office. All right, excellent. Thank you all so much. Do capture this QR code. You can also go to meetup.com, search InterSystems Meetups, and you can find our channel in meetup.com, and we'll update you there as well. I do think I have some links. Yes, please do stay in touch. We have a LinkedIn newsletter, which we will alert you about all our events, which include these meetups and hackathons and many other things that we do. We do have a Discord Tech Talk channel, and we also have a specific startup program link there. Please do capture all these. Thank you all so much. I'm going to pass it off to Jayesh for our first talk.
Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about agentic evaluation with observability, and in particular covering the 5 W questions of evaluation. So, to begin, why should I care about evaluation? Evaluation is not sexy, I know. I'm not showing you some fancy RAG system, showing you something cool, exciting, maybe with Claude Code or anything, but evaluation matters. They matter because without structured evaluations, development just becomes guesswork. And especially as you build more and more complex AI applications, you don't want to guess why it's going wrong or what's going on. You want to make sure, you want to be able to diagnose precisely any issues. And the better the evaluation system that you develop, the easier it is, the better the application you develop, the easier it is for you to understand what's going on. And this also brings into observability. A lot of times we treat LM models as the black boxes that they are. They take in some input and we get in some output. And while that's true, a lot of times we're not exactly sure about the input that's going on. Especially if you use systems like a lot of people, we talk about orchestration. And with orchestration, you have a lot of states that are constantly changing. So we want to make sure that we understand exactly what's going on in our LLMs. And so combining observability and evaluation allows us to build better systems. And this is what we're doing in the financial services team at InterSystems. So, where to evaluate? So, I don't know if you guys have seen the talk show, the LangChain Interrupt sessions. I highly recommend watching some of the videos. They're really fantastic, and they really give good insights into how other companies and people are building. So Harrison Chase covers these 3 phases of evaluations: pre-production, production, and design phase. So, what do these mean? Let's start with the pre-production phase. This is what I believe all of us are sort of familiar with when we think of evaluations. We think of, before I deploy an app, I want to make sure that it's hitting certain benchmarks. And this is what I believe everyone should start with when they're working on evaluations. Next is the production phase. So this is when your application is actually live. You want to make sure that you are collecting real users, what are they inputting, and what's the output that they're getting. Are they happy with their answers? Are they dissatisfied with their answers? And you start building a data set with live questions. Finally, you want to, then there's a third one that, and this depends on your use case. This is called the design phase. So for, if you're building a chatbot, for instance, you don't really need evaluations real time for your chatbot. So the design phase is like, as soon as an LM outputs something, we're going to evaluate it, check if it's great. If not, we're going to retry again. So for systems where your speed matters, like if I'm talking to a chatbot to understand why my tickets got canceled, that's evaluation's not going to matter there. However, if I'm writing for a healthcare setting, if I want to make sure that I'm building some system for billing, I want to make sure that I do get right answers before I pass on billing to customers. So now we've covered the why, we've covered the where, now we've covered what to evaluate. There's a myriad of different things that we can evaluate, and I like to break them down into 3 different segments. Firstly, we have agentic performance. So this actually captures the performance of your agentic systems. So we have things like answer relevancy. Does my LLM output a relevant answer to what it was asked to do. Like, for example, if I ask the LLM, what is the capital of France? And it says 9 plus 9 equals 18. It's not really helpful. And this answer relevancy, you're really not going to necessarily struggle with larger language models, but for the smaller ones, especially the ones that might be running on locally on your machines, it matters more. Prompt alignment. Prompt alignment is a wonderful metric I like measuring because a lot of times LLMs will sometimes ignore your instructions. You tell it, like, don't use a limit in your SQL query, but it does. So this is an important metric to capture. Another one that people talk about a lot is faithfulness and hallucination. Disclaimer, these are slightly different things. Faithfulness relies on your vectors, whereas hallucination relies on some sort of ground truth. But I'm going to treat them as being similar. And so these refer to when you have some sort of ground truth or chunks that your LLM can refer to in their context. Are you making sure that the answer it outputs does not contradict anything in the context? And then we have the RAG performance as well. So in terms of RAG, we care about the context that we're getting back. We care about, like, are the chunks relevant and precise? So relevancy matters to do the chunks answer the question the user is asking. And precision, and this is a really nice one. Precision is the order of the chunks. And I like measuring precision because you can build a vector search that gives you decent chunks. Getting it to return the chunks that are in really good order from most important to least important, this is how precision helps. And finally, we have guardrails. So guardrails is, we talk about, like, does it skew any toxic answers? Does it skew any biased answers? And guardrails also encompasses like making sure that when a user inputs something they shouldn't be doing, making sure that the LLM doesn't reveal any secrets. I'm not sure if any of you guys have been keeping up with the MCP news, but a lot of times there's been a lot of security vulnerabilities. This week, actually, found with the GitHub MCP and one or two more. The guy nodding, he can tell you more about it later, probably. But yeah, so this is where the fun begins. Great, we know what we want to, what kind of metrics we want. How do we actually measure them? What a tough question. So this is a diagram that I borrowed from Confidence AI. Highly recommend you look at some of their blogs. They're absolutely fantastic. So we can sort of initially discern our metrics into different ones, statistical scores and model-based scores. So those of us who've been in the ML field for much longer are probably more familiar with these statistical scores. So these ones, for example, use n-grams. And this one is, I believe, measures that if you change the characters in a text, how much more different does it become? And then we have more model-based scores. So some of these models are NLP-based, as in the yellow color, and the green ones, which is going to be the main focus of my talk today, is using LLM as a judge. LLMs are great, and they're so powerful. I think we've all seen the power of ChatGPT, the types of responses it could give. The issue is that because they're also so unpredictable, if you give it the same output 5 times, there's no guarantee that it's going to give you the same answer 5 times, even if you set something like temperature to 0. But despite this, I believe using LLMs as a judge is the best way to score your agentic performances. And I'm going to talk about, when I talk about a lot of these metrics, I'm going to in particular be talking about GEval. And I love the GEval. Not only are the resources fantastic, but one thing that I really like about their metrics, and there are others, there's so many other metrics. So first of all, GEval is free, and it's open source. And secondly, I think this is the most powerful one, is that so for something like answer relevancy, they actually give you a formula. And they're using an LLM as a judge. So the LLM is still evaluating this denominator and numerator. But they give you insights into, let's say you have, let's go back to the capital question. What is the capital of France? LLM will output the capital is Paris. what the LLM does is it'll break down the answer into a number of statements. And for each of those statements, it will see, hey, is this statement answering the user's question? And so for all the other metrics that they have, let me go back, such as prompt alignment. They'll break down your, let's say you have a 15-line prompt, they'll break that down into individual statements and make sure the LLM output, the output is matching the prompt, each of those statements. And same with context relevancy, same with, for precision, they have a different formula, but same for faithfulness, same for a lot of different metrics. And this gives you visibility. You're not just blindly getting a score. You're not blindly getting like, oh, I give the answer relevancy 0.8 for this reason. You actually get to see how they're calculating the score. So this is a metric that I haven't talked about, and I love this, honestly. So I think this, if I'm not mistaken, is only belongs to GEval, and this is called DAG, Directed Acyclical Graphs. So this is a fantastic way for you to be able to create your own evaluation. So their example is evaluating an essay. So they're like, okay, we want to get the headings from the essay. We're going to see, does it have an intro, body, conclusion, and is it in the right order? So what the DAG network, framework allows you to do is it allows you to create, manually adjust how you want to score it. How do you weigh the scores? Like, if you care, like for example, they're like, if you don't even have the summary headings, give it 0. If they're like, you have summary headings, but they're like all out of order, penalize it more. If some are in order, penalize it less. And if everything looks good, give it a 10. And this is again using LLMs. So each of the nodes is using an LLM to either extract information or to evaluate it. But this is one of the 2 metrics I love in particular. And finally, we have GEval. GEval is turning your natural language queries into evaluation. And this is absolutely powerful because what this allows you to do is rather than, for example, the graph, you still have to figure it out a bit. But this, it allows you to turn anything, like whatever you think of as a metric, as an evaluation, into a metric. So for us, for instance, I'm like, okay, I want you to evaluate a SQL query. I want you to make sure the SQL query does not use an update or insert or delete because that's a security problem. I don't want a SQL query to select more than 1,000 rows because that could crash our front end and so on. And so GEval is a fantastic way of being able to do this. And this is a screenshot I took from LangManus. So I don't know if a lot of you guys recall Manus AI. It was like something that came out a while ago. So this is an open source version of it. So when I ask when to evaluate, I'm talking about which part of this orchestration do we evaluate. The answer is everything. We want to evaluate the coordinator, the planner, the supervisor, each of the agents, and evaluate the end. And why do we care about this? Because there are so many moving parts, we want to make sure that if something goes wrong, we can say, I know it wasn't the coordinator, I know it wasn't the planner. Oh, it's the supervisor that's incorrectly assigning a task to the researcher instead of the coder, or vice versa. Or I could be like, well, the supervisor assigned it right, but the researcher's just crap. It's got to get better outputs. And the supervisor also needs to understand the researcher's getting bad outputs. So actually, the supervisor needs to be good at evaluating what each of the agents can give back. So, evaluation, the more complex architecture is, the more tests you have to write. But this is why we have this framework. And so, lastly, who should evaluate? The answer is anyone who's writing code. And I am now going to show you so I've given a talk about GEval. I've shown you why I love this. I've shown you a lot of like how you can use it for evaluations. And now I'm going to show you what you actually do with it. So this is LangFuse. So LangFuse is an observability tool where you get insights into all our traces. So you can see here, we get the questions, we get the name of our questions, we get the input, the output, we get the tokens, and the cost. And LangFuse is free. So LangFuse, you have a hobby version, you can pay for it, and LangFuse will do all the storing and everything. And you also have a self-hosted version. So you can host LangFuse yourself if you have the capability to do so. And so for our team, so because you see that we have this whole, like, you might very, very well have a complicated orchestration unit like this. So it's important to be able to leverage tools like LangFuse to be able to do this. And disclaimer, LangFuse is not the only one, but LangFuse is probably the most open source one, which is why I highly encourage you all to use it, especially if you're in a budget. So for example, you can see here that I have testing orchestrator, I have testing news. And what this means is that it lets me know that I've tested this entire graph, or I've tested a particular agent in this graph. And with LangFuse, it's easy for me to, for example, go here and be like, okay, for my news agent, what are the metrics I care about? I care about the faithfulness, how relevant was my answer to the chunks that I got back over here, how the chunk relevancy, whether the chunks I got back actually align with the input. And so we can see here, I need to improve my RAG system so the chunks are more relevant. And finally, the answer relevancy. Does the output answer the input? So with observability tools, I'm able to just hit a click button, run all my tests, and all my tests are nicely here. So when I go to my dashboard, I can actually see how my test scores are improving over time. So every time I'm pushing code changes, I actually now see, I can tell numerically, I can go to my manager, you should give me a raise. I improved the test a lot. Or you should fire me because they suck. And you can configure this dashboard however you want it. So you get to see what visualizations you want. Note that LangFuse is still a bit limited with the dashboarding capabilities, but the team is cracked and they're constantly adding improvements. So over time, this service is going to get even better and better. So I believe that is the end of my presentation. Yeah, any questions?